This is Let's Talk, getting to the root causes of the important issues of the day. This on-the-air community forum believes your voice matters and welcomes all thoughts and views without judgment. Please join today's conversation by calling 415-663-8492.
And when you call in, do call in, not if you call in, but when you call in, you'll hear this funny little noise as I patch you into the system. Please hang on until you hear me say, "You're on the air." And please give us your first name, turn down your radio, and please, everybody, watch your language. That includes you too, Shelley Rugg and Stephen Hurwitz in the studio today. Keep it clean, keep it clean.
I do have some questions about what is permitted or not, but we won't go into that today.
Well, we could give you the list, but we can't do it on air.
Mm-hmm.
That's the catch-22 of the whole thing. So, today, let's talk human personhood. And,
I've known a few.
Yes, we've known a few, and we've known a few people that, anyway. And ironically... so here's what started this. This is why I thought this was a good topic, apart from the fact that we've had a discussion, Stephen and I and Charles, before. Oh, Charles is on the road to San Diego, will not be joining us today. When human life, human personhood begins. And so we've had a conversation about that before. And then it came up that the Department of Health and Human Services released its 4-year strategic plan. And in it declares that life begins at conception, that their mission now is not just to support people at all stages of life, which is what it used to say, now says support and protect people at all stages of life from conception onwards. So that is now official, or it's going to be official Health and Human Services federal policy that life begins at conception. I thought that was interesting. And just today, there was an article that appeared in my inbox. The Republicans are sneaking creation of fetal personhood into the tax bill.
I've heard that.
Along with, I guess, a tax on the health care program.
Oh, well, they're demolishing the health care program. They're taking away the personal, the personal mandate, individual mandate. But, yes, there's that. But they sort of snuck this in, and it's about setting up a 529 plan, a college savings account, a declaration of fetal personhood into a provision in the tax bill that would allow parents to create college savings accounts known as 529 plans for the unborn. Now, American National Abortion Rights representative said, never mind that the provision is unnecessary for the children they wish to have. A 529 that's already seeded with capital in a parent's name can be transferred to a child once that child is born. So there was no actual reason for this to be included in the tax bill, other than to state the fact that personhood begins at the fetal form, whatever they think that means. That could be conception.
I thought it began when you got your driver's license.
That's one stage of life. And we have a caller already. Hi, caller, you are on the air. What's your name, please? Keep it clean. Hello. Wrong number. Oh, well. And so...
Well, it was exciting for a moment there.
It was, wasn't it? Yes. Please do give us a call.
Yeah, we do like it when people call in.
There are so many. That's why we're here. We want to hear from our listeners because, we're just 3 people who have opinions and...
So when does it begin?
We like to sit here and pontificate about things, but we really want to hear the collective wisdom of the community, don't we?
Yes.
And we are open to all suggestions, all opinions, because everyone has their own opinion. I know I do. So, and not that strongly, actually, on this subject.
I think
So let's go around the room. Stephen, you're champing at the bit, or chomping?
I believe that personhood begins at conception.
At conception, meaning?
I'm meaning that's human life.
When the sperm enters the egg.
Correct.
And how do you know when that is exactly?
I don't.
Okay.
All I know is that it's happened, and once it's happened, I believe that is that's what a human looks like at that stage.
So in that case, should that
ontogeny recapitulating,
should that zygote that is forming, let's call it a zygote because it's not a fetus or an embryo yet.
A zygote.
A single cell forms in about what? Well, let's see. Fertilization can take 2 days, up to 3 days, 2 days, I think. It can take that long.
I'm glad you've done your research on it.
And then it forms a zygote. So you believe the zygote, the combination of the two halves of the DNA are now combined into this one cell, therefore that's a person.
Correct.
Okay. So do you support abortion?
I do.
Okay.
Wow.
Well, there you go. There's the dichotomy. So
Interesting.
if
How does
that
that
is a
work?
person, then you're supporting murder as the pro-life, as
I
they call
personally
themselves.
think that whether to abort a fetus or not is that's a personal decision of the woman who's carrying the child.
The bigger person,
Yes.
not the little tiny.
I don't want to call her a mother, actually, but she doesn't become a mother, in my opinion, until the baby's born. However, I do think that that's her choice, and the people I've known who have made that choice, it's not been taken lightly. The anti-abortion crowd wants to make us think that this is let's go have an abortion. I don't think there goes. I don't think any woman takes that lightly, and but I do think that's her choice within certain limits.
I see.
I think if
Shelley,
you delay,
that's a good. Well, hold on to that position.
Absolutely.
We'll talk about that. Shelley, how about you?
Well, yeah, it's a curious position, Stephen.
What's your opinion, though, of when life begins, when personhood begins, not life, because life is continuous since the first single-celled organism billions of years ago. So,
I don't know that I've actually formed an opinion about when it begins, personhood. I guess that means a person who has rights, right? A person who has the right to be protected, which is what the language they're putting into the... I don't know. I think for me, the issue kind of revolves around a religious perspective, and that it's the religious perspective that is being pushed on our government right now, that as an American citizen, I believe in the separation of church and state. I think that as an American, we should each be able to have religious beliefs that are our own and unique and not put upon us by our government. And when laws are put into place that are coming from that position, it doesn't feel right to me as an American citizen that I need to adhere to the laws of a religion. But
you shouldn't have to, actually, because this, church and state, right? Maybe the separation of church and state, but it should not be religious.
It seems to be merging
I can't see how religion
quite
has
heavily right now.
I can't see how religion has anything to do with it. You can define it the way you want to, but and certainly religious people have their own destinies, so to speak. But what's the question? What formed? When does human life form? When are you going to look and say that's a person or that's human life, whatever that stage is?
Well, maybe there is a difference between human life and a person.
Well,
Because
Sperm is human life. Every cell in our body is human life. Every cell. So is every cell in my body a person?
Well, considering that we change our skin every 24
exactly.
hours.
We're killing ourselves all the time. No. Exactly. And when you're talking about a fertilized egg, you're talking about a single cell.
Well, I think life begins at conception. That's all. Personhood, I don't know. But if you ask me where life begins, I don't see how
life begins.
To me,
No.
To me, it's like
sperm and the egg were alive, so you're just continuing. That's a continuum.
When they
of life.
join, something's happened there.
Something else is happening.
Yes, it has.
And
it's really not the same.
Is it a person then? Is it deserving?
I think it's human life. Let's put it that way. I don't know what being a person is or isn't.
Well, that's.
I think it's human life, okay? And I don't think people are objecting. I'm not anti-abortion, so don't misunderstand me, but I think people aren't objecting to, quote-unquote, killing a person. They think they see it as taking a human life. That's what they see it as.
Right.
And you are taking life, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't be allowed to. I think we are. I think it's a personal decision. We take life all the time, actually.
But they're trying, the anti-abortion folks are trying to instill this, that personhood begins, as you say, at conception, and therefore has all the rights more rights, in fact, than the mother in some cases.
I know they're doing that, and I don't agree with them.
But you're setting yourself in the same position, so...
No, I'm not really.
Yeah, it is fascinating, Stephen, that on the one hand you say that life begins at conception, but you're okay with abortion.
I am.
So what distinguishes you from the person who's not okay with abortion?
What do you mean? What distinguishes me? Distinguishes that I'm in favor of abortion and they're not.
No, but I mean. Generally, when we think about people who believe that that sacred life that has started at conception is something that should be protected at all costs and should not be aborted.
But I don't agree with that.
Okay, so help me understand why you're okay with abortion when you.
This is pick on Stevie Day.
No,
I know.
Curious.
It's about trying to understand.
Well, okay. I think, first of all, that this might be what I would call human life. I'd say that it's still intricately bound to the woman. We won't call her a mother, but the woman who is carrying that other form, that fetus. And I think that's her decision over what happens with her uterus until a certain point. And that point for me would be if the child, fetus, whatever, is capable of living a healthy life outside of the uterus, then I would say, too late, pal. You needed to be a little early if you want to do an abortion. But up to a certain point, I think that's a woman's decision on her own. I'm not going to impose, and I don't think anyone should impose their belief on how a woman behaves vis-a-vis her uterus, frankly.
So really what you're actually saying is there's a difference between a living cell, you're calling it a human, and a person. Because a person, you're saying they shouldn't abort after, 24 weeks or something, when or 36, when is it that is viable, a fetus is viable? Actually, 22 weeks, they have had surviving fetuses when they've taken them out at 22 weeks, but of course they have terrible nervous system disabilities and all
exactly.
But 24 weeks, then they're a person, really, is what you're saying.
Well, I just think at a certain point, if a woman hasn't figured it out before then, I think go ahead and have the baby. I mean,
and I think
we're
that's
just
the
not going to
case
support you
most
forever.
often. Most people who get abortions get them in the first 6 weeks or sooner.
Fine.
It just makes the most sense. And I don't think. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how often.
But you've had children.
Uh-huh.
How did you, I mean, from a pregnant woman's point of view, when do you feel like there's, you think of it as a baby, as your child, actually? Is that very early on, as soon as you miss a period? That you...
Well, I have had abortions. I've had more than one. It was heartbreaking to make that decision. And at the time I made the decision, it was more about my ability to be able to take care of a child at that point in my life. And my partner and I made a very clear decision to have children. And so for me, the experience was completely different when I made the choice to have a child. Then, as soon as I knew I was pregnant, I was becoming a mother because, not only do all kinds of wackadoodle things happen to your body.
Wait, that's too technical for me. What's that?
Yeah, so for example, your sense of smell changes. Your skin coloring changes. Your ability to eat certain foods changes because probably the sense of smell. I abhorred broccoli. I couldn't be in the room where it was being cooked or served. But now I love broccoli. So it's different. And, you're feeling this creature is how it feels, growing in your body, moving around, bumping into your organs, making you rush to the nearest toilet because you can't hold your bladder. So definitely feeling protective. I remember being pregnant and being at a fireworks display, the first and last time I ever went to one, a big fireworks show at a stadium, so loud. And I remember sitting there with my hands on my belly trying to muffle the sound because I was sure it was disturbing, So I think if you are becoming a mother and you are choosing that path, you're becoming a mother while you're pregnant. It is not just, there's a thing growing in me and and when it pops out, I'll get to know it better, And definitely I would say that you don't know what it's like to be a mom until the baby comes out. And you're faced with an incredible amount of reality that you may or may not have fully anticipated. But choosing to have an abortion is definitely not an easy choice, and it's a very emotional decision, and it's something that stays with you. And I've known people who have had abortions and then suddenly it seems like all their friends are having babies. And every time they see the baby or hold the baby, they have to leave because they get too emotional. And then they may end up deciding to have a child sooner than they're actually ready just because of that emotional tug.
So that is a reaction to what might have been that there was a potential to actually become a mother, and you felt like that was forfeited, or they felt like it was forfeited. They'd done. It's an invasive procedure unless it's done chemically or the morning after pill or whatever.
Right.
But so traumatic in that sense anyway. But then, it sounds as if you're regretting the loss of life, right? Or the loss of potential personhood, or the loss of a person that was within you.
Yeah, I guess you can't help but wonder, especially, if you had children and you you've raised, these lovely people, and you can't help but wonder, what would have been.
Yeah, well, a friend of mine was talking about that just the other day when I said what we were going to be talking about. That, what would have happened if.
I totally understand.
Anyway.
My life would have been completely different,
completely.
that's for sure.
Well, for sure. We have a caller. Caller, you're on the air. What's your name, please?
Hi, it's MK in Seattle.
Hey, MK.
Hi. I'm really interested in what Shelley's been saying. I've never had an abortion. I've had 3 wonderful children. And but I know many people who have had abortions, and there really is a grieving process that they go through. It's a hard decision to make, and it's physiologically very, very, very difficult for you. And you don't, you get to know in the 9 months gestation, you get to know the baby. At least I felt that I did.
Right.
When they were born, I already had a real sense of who they were, and I was right.
Yeah. My 2 children that I carried, it was a completely different experience. Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, that's just sort of where I am with it.
So how early, though, how early does that take place in your psyche?
Well, I think that when they quicken, when the first like 3 months, you first feel that butterfly,
Right,
in your under your ribs. There's an aha, a big bright moment that you for one thing that the baby's viable, which is important, but also it's not part of you really. It's its own thing. It's its own self. I never really considered when life begins.
right.
I've never thought of that. I'm not a religious person.
Yeah.
So maybe that's part of it.
I don't think it has anything to do with religion, but listening
Well, for
to
some
both
people
of you,
it does very much.
I would say that listening to both of you is really confirming my point of view.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
That's good, Stephen. I'm glad you're feeling better.
Well,
No, it's not that.
Well, so the church and I believe the Jewish faith and the early Christian faith, they both thought that life began at the quickening, which is when you feel the first kick, basically. Because that's when the Lord breathes life into the fetal. Yeah.
Actually, there's all sorts of different ways of rationalizing it or looking at it or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I think the moment I heard the heartbeat, at the doctor's checkup was an amazing moment.
I don't even ever remember that. And there wasn't any amnio. And there
Oh,
wasn't
yeah?
anything way back in the day.
Oh,
Kids are almost all over 50.
Yeah. Mine are in their 20s, so. Yeah.
Oh, my good. Okay. Yeah, well, mine are, one of mine, and she's so 50.
I had no idea she was so old. Good heavens.
We age marvelously.
Well, to me, it seems so arbitrary, though. If you can just make that decision and go, oh, today I felt this little bump in my belly, so now it's human life, whereas yesterday it wasn't. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, it's developmental.
Yeah, it's part of the process. And I had 3 months of really kind of hideous morning sickness with each child, and it was sort of like being on a terrible boat.
Yeah.
for 3 months, and so there are things that you are getting used to, and I know that there was a brown line that appeared from my navel down to my pubes with each child almost immediately after I got pregnant, and there are things like that.
Yeah, isn't that fascinating? Yeah. And then it goes away.
Yeah.
Heavens.
It's bizarre.
Yeah. So anyway, keep
Yeah.
up the good work, you kids.
Well,
thanks
you.
for calling in.
Thank you, MK, and thank you for
Appreciate it.
having 3 wonderful children.
I won't see you next week because Thursday is Thanksgiving, but I will be in Point Reyes, and so I'll be around.
All right.
Good. Excellent.
Okay,
Thanks,
take
MK.
care.
Bye-bye.
And we have another caller on the other line. What's your name, please? And keep it clean.
Hi, this is Gail.
Hey, Gail.
Hey. So is there a show next week on Thanksgiving? Good question.
Well, I'm going to do a show. I don't know who else is going to be.
Okay. All right.
I'm going to be performing for the Thanksgiving community gathering at the Dance Palace.
Oh, lovely.
So I think I have to be there at 12, so I might be able to be here if I run over there. I don't know.
Fabulous.
I don't know.
We don't know. No, there will be somebody here blathering. Anyway,
so what's up, Gail?
So I find in these conversations that we tend to overlap two issues. I think that there's life, which is somewhat unmistakable. I mean, I remember knowing the minute that I remember knowing I was not going to get another period. I might not have known for sure that I was pregnant, but it clearly did not feel like anything that I had experienced before. And so what would that be, at less than a month? And, and the feelings that go along with the amazement of creating this life within you. But I think that the decision to end a pregnancy is a very personal one. And although I personally would not have an abortion, I took, great steps to be careful not to, to use birth control and to not be in that position. And I think I also knew, as when I was old enough that I could care for a child so I would not end a pregnancy. But that being said, I can see a lot of circumstances where we make choices that are serving a bigger good, that bring an unwanted child or a child that is unable to be cared for, or one that completely upends, the course of an individual's life is a very personal and a difficult and a private choice. I just think it's confusing the issue when we try to determine, if it's life, therefore we need to behave exactly one way, where different people, can interpret that. I think Shelley or whoever, shared that the separation of church and state allows people with different views to make personal choices.
But
people have had abortions. I just want to say one thing. People have had abortions, and you can go back 10,000 years, and you will see that there are people who terminated pregnancies.
Oh, of course.
For a variety of reasons. Whether it's legal or not, it will always be an option that some people choose.
But we like to say that we live in a nation of laws, and when laws get involved, then there has to be, when people start saying that this is homicide, feticide is homicide, then laws have to be made. And then you have to have these boundaries that you cannot do this, and because this is a living person. That's where we're headed right now with all this, with the administration. Roe v. Wade said, up to the 24th week, I think?
I don't remember.
12, 16. I mean, I don't know that it was ever, again, these are, as a physician, I can say that these are decisions that have often, through the ages, been made in private with your family and with your physicians. The idea that somehow they should be legislated is the absurd.
But that is where we're heading. Can you just hold the thought there? Hang on, don't hang up. I have to do this. This is KWMR 90.5 Point Reyes Station, 89.9 Bolinas, 92.3 San Geronimo Valley. Oh, how about this? How coincidental. Ken and Sam Levin Window Cleaning are supporters of KWMR, helping West Marin, the San Geronimo Valley, and the North Bay see clearly for more than 25 years. Additional services include clearing gutters and downspouts, as well as cleaning solar panels. They make house calls and can be reached at 415-663-9669. That's 415-663-9669. And we are also supported by To Celebrate Life Breast Cancer Foundation, raising funds to help underserved women and men living with breast cancer. Through its Bay Area Breast Cancer Grants Program, the foundation supports nonprofits that provide direct and emergency services and believes that no one should face breast cancer alone. Information about how to get involved is available at tocelebrate.life.org. Anyway, so
I want to point something out.
Yeah.
I think that the issue of abortion is not the question is whether you can have a safe abortion. women are going to get abortions whether it's outlawed or not, but by outlawing it, makes it much more difficult to get a safe abortion.
Yes, it does.
And for people who are
Absolutely.
less financially able.
But
Again.
And, there are sometimes it's the same people who are against safe abortions are also against contraception, saying that you're not allowing a human life to be created, therefore you're going against the will of the maker, whoever he happens to be. So,
16% of all abortions are evangelicals. Interesting to know that number.
Really?
That's right.
Well, now.
Huh.
What do you know?
Well, the stigma of having a child out of wedlock is so great that I think when they balance the two, they find that terminating the pregnancy is the easier way to go.
There you go. But it's, we're still heading towards trying to overturn Roe v. Wade again. We're still heading toward the new federal guidelines for the Health and Human Services is that conception
I read that,
is people are personhood at conception, basically. So
in Texas, I don't know if they finalized it, but they were talking about criminalizing women for having abortions.
And the
or
physicians.
stillbirths.
Actually putting, even a stillbirth.
And the
Stillbirths.
physicians.
Yes,
As
and
if
the physicians.
they could control that.
Well, so here we go. U.S. women charged with murder following miscarriages. 2006.
Really?
This has been going on for years. Mississippi. Yeah, Mississippi. 15-year-old girl lost her baby in a stillbirth at 36 weeks into the pregnancy. Prosecutors charged her with depraved heart murder. That's what they call it down there. Of her child after they discovered she had abused cocaine while she was pregnant. So she was guilty of murder, depraved heart murder, which is a life sentence if she didn't get jailed, but kind of upsetting, I would think. Another woman, Bei Shuai, Chinese American, has been imprisoned. This was back in 2011. Has been imprisoned for the last 3 months without bail in Indianapolis, Indiana, charged with murdering her baby. She attempted suicide last December after her boyfriend abandoned her when she was 33 weeks pregnant. The child was stillborn. Wasn't stillborn. It was born anyway, and died 4 days later or something. But
Oh my God!
So,
talk about a tragedy.
And then she was charged and imprisoned for murdering her child.
So she's pregnant. He leaves her. She tries to kill herself,
Right.
which causes her baby not to survive, and
Correct.
now she's in jail.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Alabama has prosecuted at least 40 cases. This is 6 years ago, so no doubt there are more, under the state's chemical endangerment law, which was introduced in 2006. It was purportedly designed to protect children from fumes inhaled from methamphetamine being cooked by their parents, but is now being used to criminalize pregnant women who miscarry. And Illinois. Yes, Illinois. First state to charge a woman with manslaughter in connection with a stillborn baby. Prosecutors claim the baby died as a result of high levels of cocaine, but a grand jury refused to indict. Texas, New York, Arizona, Hawaii, Utah, and California are among the states with similar laws on the books.
You know what? I'm going to hang up. You guys are doing a great job.
Well-
It's a really an important topic.
Well, thank you very much,
Thank
Catherine,
you.
for
Calling in.
calling in.
See you later.
Okay.
Do give us a call, won't you? I was blathering too much there, I'm sorry. 415-663-8492. Give us a call. When do you think, not life begins, but when does personhood begin? Let's put it that way. Is it at conception? Is it at cell division? Is it at implantation? When it's implanted in the uterus? Is it when brain waves appear, lower or upper brain waves? Is it at birth?
People who take that position are just being technical.
Yes,
and
of course.
And a rationalization.
And why shouldn't you be technical?
And a
why
rationalization.
should we not be technical about when life begins?
It's a rationalization, though.
Of
I need permission from myself to abort the fetus. Therefore,
no.
I'm going to
Well,
call it something different, and that gives me permission.
You could be taking it that way, or it could just be, don't we want to know when personhood happens, when it actually happens, when does a person begin? There's a scientific question, certainly a philosophical question, certainly religious, you know.
I find it interesting, this onslaught towards Planned Parenthood in terms of abortions that take up only 3% of their activities. And I would say they are probably the most effective organization preventing abortion because of all the sex education and women's health that they perform. And I think that also, let's couple that with it, I think these same people don't want sex education.
No, they don't. They don't want contraception, don't want sex education. They don't want women to have advice about abortions. In fact, the Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court, is going to hear a case brought by a California, what do they call them? Pregnancy center, they call them, which is one of these places where they say, come in, if you're pregnant, come and see us, and, it's free, so women go and see them, and then they give them the push not to have an abortion, even if, life circumstances, no matter what, if you're in danger, no matter what, you got to have that child, put it up for adoption, it'll be wonderful. They are being required by the state of California to actually hand out information about abortions. So they're taking it all the way to the Supreme Court.
Will they provide health care for this woman?
They're supposed to. They're supposed to. But then, of course, after they're born, especially if they're children of color, then, their personhood status goes way down because, then they're alive and then we don't think about them anymore. We just want to put them in jail. But that's just personhood, yes. It seems in cases like that the fetus is more important than the woman carrying it.
What if you're a person when you get dressed?
Well, I was this morning. I know that.
I don't know. It's a very difficult question to answer.
It is, and
I don't have a problem.
And scientists don't have one definition because
I think
there are many places where you could call it personhood.
A difference between a forming life, a developing life.
Yep.
Yes. What?
No, sorry.
Well,
they actually have
it looks
this.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What about ontogeny recapitulating phylogeny?
What does that mean, Stephen?
It means
Charles isn't here. I don't know.
It means in the process of a child of a fetus goes through stages that are early evolutionary positions. So there are these aquatic stage, and I can't remember. We all learned it in biology class. But the stages of lower life forms, the fetus goes through.
Right.
It's recapitulating phylogeny.
But you're saying it's human.
I'm saying it's interesting, and yes, of course, that's a process that humans go through. That's why I'm saying these are all the fertilization of the egg. These are things that we as human beings go through. So for us to say that at that time, somehow, even though we're going through the very same things that makes us human, to say at some time we're not human, even though
a human person.
Okay, personhood.
Yeah, because everything on our body is human. Every cell in my body is a human, right? It's all human. Yes, the air we breathe out has human bits.
Well, again,
in it.
Okay, so it all revolves around abortion, essentially. Then
and stem cell research, embryonic stem cells.
Exactly. That's a very.
This is why
you've raised up a very interesting.
This is all about law, right?
This
is why laws have to be, because people, again, the same people mostly are saying that embryonic stem cell research is murder, that we're experimenting on human beings. You would say they were human beings.
What about bottle babies?
Yes, and they throw them away. If they're not allowed in the state that the in vitro fertilization clinic is, if in their state they're not allowed to donate them to embryonic stem cell research, they dump them.
What did Huxley have to say about that?
And, of course, there are people who say that is murder, too.
So is there fear
Every child should be born.
I mean, I don't know about the stem cell research situation. Is there fear that if it's allowed, that people are going to sort of, what is it, farm?
Oh, yeah. Oh, sure.
It is troubling, though, when you think about it. This onslaught, the momentum behind changing the environment we live in, including who we are at the lowest life form. I think it's troubling. All the technology that's coming, a lot of it is troubling to me, and we just keep getting more and more, deeper and deeper into the
difficult philosophical questions.
That's right.
And medical and
That's
ethical and legal.
That's right.
That's why there has to be a definition of when personhood starts. Right? I mean, that you have to have guide. If you're going to make laws about things like anti-abortion laws, then there has to be a rationale behind it, and therefore you have to say this is a person at 12 weeks.
I'm not clear about this personhood.
So if they put that language,
human person.
If they put the language in there that personhood begins at conception, then follows that
every miscarriage is a murder.
Wow.
That's right. If you follow that.
But God's doing it if it's natural miscarriage. And, 90% of fertilized eggs don't even implant. Or, they're flushed out in various ways. So, God is murdering babies all the time. It's just not up to us when we shouldn't decide when to do it, I guess.
I think God has no place in this discussion, actually.
Oh.
You might be talking... Well, we're talking about people who are... who take a very extreme point of view, who are after control, and that doesn't really necessarily have to do with the philosophical. Forget the control part. The question is,
it's
biological.
You say
it's biological,
extreme, though, but it's a logical extension of what you say. If a human being, if a zygote is a human being, therefore, in their eyes, because murder is murder. If that's a human being, you're murdering it if you have that abortion.
Well, I personally think we have petition.
Hardly extreme.
I think we have petition to take life under circumstances. Taking life is okay.
As I said earlier, I think mothers should have the ability to take their child's life at any time.
Oh.
Who else? And capital punishment and artificial intelligence. Is that going to be human? If it has
that's a whole nother topic.
My goodness!
If it's a person that has so much of his body is $6 million man. What do you call it? Bionic, whatever. Or if he has implants in his brain or something, is he still a human being? Where does that? All this is coming up,
and it's coming up to engineering.
Yeah.
Well,
personhood. It's a very
thinking
very
about
important.
the religious point of view. I can have a lot of empathy and compassion for a person who has a deep and heartfelt belief about the creation of life and all that goes along with it, and the choices that they want to make for themselves, I wouldn't stand in the way of. And I just think, that's what's hard for me is that when somebody holds a perspective that's not necessarily everyone's. I mean, this could be true whether it's about religion or anything.
Right.
It could be political ideas that when you make an assumption that this should be true for everyone, that's where you get into trouble.
Well, so they pass laws. Virginia has a personhood bill. It was passed and put into effect in 2012. And the summary is, Rights of Unborn Children provides that unborn children at every stage of development enjoy all the rights, privileges, and immunities available to other persons, citizens, and residents of the Commonwealth, subject only to the laws and constitutions of Virginia and the U.S. There you go. You should move.
Well,
because, and that's what happens when you enshrine that into law. Suddenly, the fetus, the zygote, the fertilized egg, has as much right as any
What about
other,
responsibility
any
as well? You can't have a right without a responsibility. What if the growing fetus is responsible for the death of the mother?
Aha!
And is
Excellent
viable.
point.
Is he or she now?
She died in childbirth.
Would that be second-degree
therefore the
murder?
baby.
Baby goes straight to prison.
Maybe, yeah,
Life in prison.
bingo.
It's logical. It's logical.
Well, it is scary when you think about all of the repercussions that go beyond, whether someone can have an abortion or not. The whole personhood issue, the idea that a corporation is a person. And what they get away with. So
can they be commit homicide?
And can we ride in the carpool lane if we're carrying a person?
Oh,
in Virginia,
now you're talking. Hey, I'm pregnant.
In Virginia, you can.
We have a caller. Caller, you're on the air. Keep it clean, please. What's your name?
This is Colleen calling.
Colleen, how are you?
Good. So I've been listening to all of this for a while, and on some level, I think the whole thing is so ridiculous. I think a woman, if she gets pregnant, it's her choice. It's like the guy, he can just go off and do whatever he chooses to do, but it's a woman's body. And I think on some level of the child, the baby, whatever, is really not if it like, until it gets outside the body, it's really not a human. It's really not. It wouldn't survive outside of the woman's body. Right. I mean, there's like the last few weeks maybe, but there's like point of if it wasn't inside that woman's body, it would not survive. So the whole thing of saying that it's a human when right after conception, I think is ridiculous.
Ridiculous, Steve.
So what you say then is, I had it in a minute, it just crossed me. So you're saying that when it can survive, then it becomes human, but before it can survive, it's not human.
That's my feeling. It's a blob. It's a blob that goes on. Yeah, then the heartbeat comes. I mean, even the heartbeat comes when it's still just a blob.
Right.
Well, maybe when a heartbeat comes, maybe you could call it a human being.
Well, there are many places you could call it a human being. This is one of the places where, I mean, this is actually Roe v. Wade. It's about viability, right? You can't have an abortion after the fetus is a viable fetus.
But again,
but you wouldn't have abortion all the way up to that time.
I think again, it's really
or
a law that says that you cannot have an abortion. I think that's not right. You should be able to do as well. You should be able to do with your body whatever you choose to do with your body.
It's pretty funny too when you think about that. Oftentimes, it's the men that want the abortion to happen.
Of course, it's the men. There's most of them in the medical field and all the research. Most of it's like it's the man that comes in and he sets all those rules. And what about the woman that has this fetus in her body? I mean, I was, when I was young, I was considering an abortion with my oldest child. I chose not to for various reasons, but that was clearly my choice. That's what I wanted.
I have no quarrel.
People were telling me, it would be better, and you're so young, and yada yada yada.
I think what Shelley was saying, though, it was the sperm donor that's pressuring the woman. Isn't that what you were saying?
Often, I think often, yeah.
Yeah, it does happen.
I mean, in my case, it was a sperm donor, and he never had contact with my child ever. Never saw my child ever. And all he was a sperm donor on a. I mean, I was even using a diaphragm, for God's sake. It was one of those. Oh Jesus!
Yeah. I mean that. I think people do often.
He walked away.
They want to make an assumption that that's a stupid woman who wasn't using birth control, and that is not That wasn't the case with me.
I mean, I had a second child with a diaphragm, and
Wow.
he lived, and then
Yeah.
then the doctor said, you're not a good fit for a diaphragm.
Oh,
A little
you
late.
think?
Oh, no, thank you. I just discovered that,
Yeah.
But I think that whole thing generally it's men, that says you should go, and all these rules about that you should or shouldn't have an abortion, all this stuff. It's really not up to anybody else but the woman. Period.
Well, don't you think there should be
body.
What about a limit on abortion? Should there be some time period where we can say to a woman, okay, you can have an abortion up to this point, but after
I think that would be a medical decision, advised by a medical doctor that will say, it'll be unsafe for your body. It'll be unsafe, I mean, there's many miscarriages that happens. So they're saying that somehow that it's a woman's fault that she had a miscarriage at a later state or stillbirth and all this stuff.
Yeah.
I think that whole, I don't know, I get so, when I hear that.
Yeah.
It's generally men. Sorry.
Of course it is.
That
It's a
will
patriarchy.
say that, and walk away. In my case, this guy, he walked away.
Yeah.
And never paid any attention, even years later, when.
Probably just as well by this.
Totally. Many years later, I did talk to him for various reasons. And I said, are you interested in having contact with your child? And he said, absolutely not.
Yeah.
And that was when my child was a grown person, a grown man.
There you go.
So, it's like, no, I think...
Well, some men...
Get out of woman's business.
Some men should not be around children and would not make great fathers. I mean, I don't think I would. And I was very lucky in my earlier life to have known a couple of women who were smarter than I and availed themselves of the services and terminated pregnancies. And, more power to them, I say. Thank you. I thank them. Anyway,
Thank you so much for calling.
Thank you, Carrie.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.
There you go. So, viability. Consciousness, reasoning, self-motivated activity, communication, the ability to communicate, and self-awareness is another kind of philosophical definition of personhood. And, of course, all that doesn't happen until the baby's about 18 months old.
Probably sooner, but...
Self-awareness, all that, communication, self-motivated activity.
Interesting.
Then there's another philosophical posit that is there's gradual personhood. Starts with fertilization through fetus, and they become more and more a person, more and more a human being. But the more established human being, perhaps the woman in whose body this person is growing, has more rights under law than the fetus in her belly. How's that? In her womb.
But you were about to call that woman a mother.
Yeah, right. Well, sure. Right.
Okay.
But that carries on even, a fetus, a baby. The baby still has, not in my opinion, this is a philosophical opinion, the baby has fewer rights than the parent.
But they're trying to change that.
Oh, I agree with you.
And, all the way up toddler until they're adult. And then...
to save the life of the mother, regardless of the age of the child.
Irregardless? Good heavens, you said it. And...
is that a word, irregardless? Damn it. Oh.
And you're not even, there's the age of, what do you call it? It's 18, age of consent. No, not the age of consent. Age of...
Legal age.
Adulthood, right?
Right.
So
Which is very arbitrary.
We have all these arbitrary things already, so why not think about where it starts?
Well, I think it's...
Stephen, you have your idea, and Shelley, you have your idea.
It's part of the whole landscape of controlling women right now.
Yes.
That's happening in our country, and that's what's scary.
Yeah.
And these people are on the ascendancy.
Yes, they are. Well, and there are people who agree that life human personhood begins at conception. And so unfortunately, that lends credence to their views.
But we disagree as to
you don't think it's
what
murder.
a woman's response to that is.
Right.
I guess for me, there's a distinction between the development of human life and personhood.
You know what I mean? I have a problem with this name, personhood, and according it all the way back to a fertilization. I have a problem with that. Somehow, I think of personhood as something different.
Oh, well, maybe we should start the show again.
Yeah, let's start over.
Anyway, thank you. Thank you both. Thank you, callers, and thank you, listeners. This has been Let's Talk. KWMR does not take a stand on any of the issues discussed on Let's Talk. Opinions expressed on this program are those of the hosts and callers and don't necessarily reflect the views of KWMR, its board of directors, underwriters, or members. And, we'll be back next week. What's next week? Is it Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving.
Oh, well, somebody will be here next week. It might just be just me, but who knows?
The archive.
Thanks, everybody.